So this is one of my favorite books ever of all time. The Fall of Reach, Halo. This was actually written and published like a month or two before Combat Evolved actually released. So this is like the first canon before the official canon, really. Um, I know the other Halo books, like they follow the canon with, Master Chief waking up in cryo sleep and all that stuff, but this was actually written before the game even came out, before he wakes up in cryo sleep. And it shows pretty much the origin of how he was taken, how the kids all trained, their first set of missions. It shows how Jacob Keyes was a part of the Spartan program with Halsey, everything with Halsey, and how she started everything, how she made Cortana, as well as I think Mendez is his name, trained the kids. And it really shows their mental state through everything. Because you have to remember, they were taken John was like 6 when he was taken. And I want to say they were probably about 16, 17 when first contact with Covenant happened, mostly in secret. And then they got their augmentations at about that age, roughly the same time. Like, I think it's literally like chapter 15 or so that they have first contact with the Covenant, and they get their augmentation like all between chapter 13 and 15, all pretty much at the same time. So, but yeah, it definitely shows their state and mentality with how they operate and become so mythical. It is definitely, I wouldn't say emotional, but it is very gut wrenching when you remember some of the things that they do. They are children. They were taught a lot of the stuff as kids. Like, it gives you an insane perspective on everything and why, like, something like Halo 4 and Halo 5, you have Locke, you have Buck as Spartan 4s hunting this man who has a singular focus. Like, that's what I would describe this as. This is a singular focus. Like, it is, when you read this, you will literally think this is the Terminator. There is nothing that will stop this man from doing what he needs to do, and you will understand why he is the way he is reading through some of this. As well as probably some of how Jacob Keyes works with being who he is as well. I mean, Dr. Halsey, there isn't a whole lot emotionally about her. You do see more of her humanity in Fall of Reach, especially towards John. But everything with Jacob Keyes does add a little bit more of an insight into him as a tactician and how he cares about his people. It was really cool seeing more of the crew that Keyes works with, their plan coming together, and then really showing the might of the Covenant against the UNSC and the humans. And it's really cool, unlike the other Halo books, because right now I am reading the Flood, the first book that mimics the first game, Combat Evolved. It alternates perspective with some of the elites, some of the ship masters in the Covenant. You see their perspective, but this one is purely human perspective. You have Keyes, you have Halsey, you have John, a couple other random like people who discover stuff, but you see everything from human perspective and the might of the Covenant, and that makes everything with fighting the Covenant more daunting, but also incredibly more resilient when you realize 10, 20 years, 30 years pass in this book that they're fighting. Like, you have to remember, there's parts where it's like 25-25, and then there's parts where there's like, what is, let's see, this one has 25-52, but this chapter is in the beginning is 25-25. So, like, literally, you have decades that pass across this book that they're fighting the Covenant. Things are getting destroyed. They're getting tired. They're getting worn out. And it is such a dual perspective of showing how resilient and tough and ingenuitive, but also how incredibly daunting and exhausting everything is. So, this book is what, almost 24 years old? And it's still one of my favorite books to read. So, absolutely recommend it. Again, this is like the first official like canon before Halo Reach for Halo Combat Evolved. This was made and published before Combat Evolved came out, as like an in tandem that led into the game. So it is a little interesting, because it does end kind of differently than how Combat Evolved starts or how the Flood book starts. So that is a little bit of a connection issue, but it is still highly good, and I still consider it part of everything that happens. Well, I guess you can't do that because Cortana is with him or with, well, no, I guess you could say no, because even when the Covenant attacks Reach, yeah, I mean, it's pretty much like completely different than Halo Reach, is described. Halo Reach, the whole bombardment, as far as you're understood in the book, a whole bombardment of it was pretty instantaneous versus the game where it wasn't so instantaneous. Because I mean, you could still, everything that happens in this around Reach, you could still say it happens during the video game, but it is a bit disconnected, and they did change a lot of things. So, on the timing of how the Covenant get to Reach, it is very different in the book versus the games. So, I still highly recommend reading it just for John's perspective and mentality, as well as Halsey and Keyes. Those are the three that show it, as well as, like I said, the brutality of the Covenant, the daunting task of fighting the Covenant for decades, in something like what was happening. So I highly recommend, like, you'll see that human exhaustion, that human resilience that you see in Halo 3, you'll understand it more in this game. So it is by far one of my favorites. So our next goal is we're going to finish Halo the Flood, which is basically the mirror of Halo Combat Evolved. And we will get into that hopefully here in the next week or two. I got a lot of reading time coming up, with some stuff in about a week from when I am filming this, which is July 6th. This week I will be reading, but Friday the 11th I will probably have quite a bit of time on my hands to read, and we'll probably finish it, or we'll be starting Halo First Strike, which is the next book in the series. So, but otherwise, I will catch everybody in the next video. It'll be our first time reading the other Halo books. Like I said, I read Fall of Reach several times. I highly recommend it. Check out everything down below, and I will see you all for that video.